Quickened spirit of sacrifice. Before I narrate the struggle for the Indian settlers' rights in Transvaal and the dealings with the Asiatic Department, I must turn to some other aspects of my life. Up to now, there had been in me a mixed desire. The spirit of self sacrifice was tempered by the desire to lay by something for the future. About the time I took up chambers in Bombay, an American insurance agent had come there, a man with a pleasing countenance and a sweet tongue. As though we were old friends, he discussed my future welfare. All men of our status in America have their lives insured. Should you not also insure yourself against the future? Life is uncertain. We in America regard it as a religious obligation to get insured. Can I not tempt you to take out a small policy? Up to this time, I had given the cold shoulder to all the agents. I had met in South Africa and India, for I had thought that life insurance implied fear and want of faith in God. But now I succumbed to the temptation of the American agent. As he proceeded with his argument, I had before my mind's eye a picture of my wife and children. Man, you have sold almost all the ornaments of your wife. I said to myself, if something were to happen to you, the burden of supporting her and the children would fall on your poor brother, who has so nobly filled the place of father. How would that become you? With these and similar arguments, I persuaded myself to take out a policy of rupees 10,000. But when my mode of life changed in South Africa, my outlook changed too. All the steps I took at this time of trial were taken in the name of God and for His service. I did not know for how long I should have to stay in South Africa. I had a fear that I might be able to get back to India. So I decided to keep my wife and children with me and earn enough to support them. This plan made me deplore the life policy and feel ashamed of having been caught in the net of the insurance agent. If I said to myself my brother is really in the position of my father, surely he would not consider it too much of a burden to support my widow, if it came to that. And what reason had I to assume that death would claim me earlier than the others? After all, the real protector was neither I nor my brother but the Almighty. In getting my life insured, I had robbed my wife and children of their self reliance. Why should they not be expected to take care of themselves? What happened to the families of the numberless poor in the world? Why should I not count myself as one of them? A multitude of those thoughts passed through my mind, but I did not immediately act upon them. I recollect having paid at least one insurance premium in South Africa. Outward circumstances too supported this train of thought. During my first sojourn in South Africa, it was Christian influence that had kept alive in me the religious sense. Now it was theosophical influence that added strength to it. Mr. Rich was a theosophist and put me in touch with the society at Johannesburg. I have never become a member as I had many my differences, but I came in close contact with almost every theosophist. I had religious discussions with them every day. There used to be readings from the theosophical books, and sometimes I had occasion to address their meetings. The chief thing about theosophy is to cultivate and promote the idea of brotherhood. We had considerable discussion over this, and I criticized the members where their conduct did not appear to me square with the ideal. Now, the criticism was not without its wholesome effect to me. It led to introspection. Part 5. Result of introspection. When in 1893 I came in close contact with the Christian friends, I was mere novice. They tried hard to bring home to me and make me accept the message of Jesus. And I was a humble and respectful listener with an open mind. At that time I naturally studied Hinduism to the best of my ability and endeavored to understand other religions. In 1903 the position was somewhat changed. Theosophist friends certainly intended to draw me into their society, but that was with a view of getting something from me as a Hindu. Theosophical literature is replete with Hindu influence, and so these friends expected that I should be helpful to them. I explained that my Sanskrit study was not much to speak of, that I had not read the Hindu scriptures in the original, but that even my acquaintance with the translations was of the slightest. But being believers in samskar, tendencies caused by the previous birth, and punarjanma, rebirth, they assumed that I should be able to render at least some help. And so I felt like a triton among the minnows. I started reading Swami Vivekananda's Raj Yoga with some of these friends and M.N. Dwivedi's Raj Yoga with others. I had to read Patanjali's Yoga Sutras with one friend and Bhagavad Gita with quite a number. We formed a sort of a seekers club where we had regular readings. I already had faith in the Gita, which had a fascination for me. Now I realize the necessity of giving deeper into it. I had one or two translations by means of which I read to understand the original Sanskrit. I decided also get by heart one or two verses every day. For this purpose, I employed the time of my morning ablutions. The operation took me 35 minutes, 15 minutes for the toothbrush, and 20 for the bath. The first I used to do standing in Western fashion. So on the wall opposite, I struck slips of paper on which were written the Gita verses and referred to them now and then to help my memory. This time was found sufficient for memorizing the daily portion and recalling the verses already learned. I remember having thus committed to memory 13 chapters, but the memorizing of the Gita had to give away to other work and the creation and nurture of Satyagraha, which absorbed all my thinking time, as the later may be said to be doing even now. What effect this reading of the Gita had on my friends only they can say, but to me the Gita became an infallible guide of conduct. It became my dictionary of daily reference. Just as I turned to the English dictionary for the meanings of English words that I did not understand, I turned to this dictionary of conduct for a ready solution of all my troubles and trials. Words like aparigraha, non-possessions, and sambhava, equality, gripped me. Samabhav is what we say. How to cultivate and preserve the equality was a question. Now, how was one how to treat alike insulting, insolent, and corrupt officials, co-workers of yesterday raising meaningless opposition, and men who had always been good to one? How was one to divest oneself of all possessions? Was not the body itself possession enough? Were not wife and children's possessions? Was I to destroy all the cupboards of books I had? Was I to give up all I had to follow him? Straight came the answer. I could not follow him unless I gave up all I had. My study of English law came to my help. Snell's discussions on the maxims of equity came to my memory. I understand more clearly in the lights of the Gita teaching the implications of the word trustee. My regard for jurisprudence increased. I discovered it in religion. I understood the Gita teaching of non-possession to mean that those who desired salvation should act like the trustee who, though having control over other possessions, regards not an iota of them as his own. It became clear to me as daylight that non-possession and equability presupposed a change of heart, a change of attitude. I then wrote to Reva Shankar Bhai to allow the insurance policy to lapse and get whatever could be recovered, or else to regard the premiums already paid as lost. For I had become convinced that God, who created my wife and children as myself, would take care of them. To my brother, who had been as a father to me, I wrote explaining that I had given him all that I have saved up for that moment, but that henceforth he should expect nothing from me for future savings, if any would be utilized for the benefit of the community. I could not easily make my brother understand this. In stern language, he explained to me my duty towards him. I should not, he said, aspire to be wiser than your father. I must support the family as he did. I pointed out to him that I was exactly doing what our father had done. The meaning of family had but to be slightly widened, and the wisdom of my step would become clear. My brother gave me up and practically stopped all communication. I was deeply distressed. But it would have been a greater distress to give up what I considered to be my duty, and I preferred the lesser. But what did not affect my devotion to him, which remained as pure and great as ever. His great love for me was at the root of his misery. He did not so much want my money as that I should be well behaved towards the family. Near the end of his life, however, he appreciated my viewpoint. When almost on his deathbed, he realized that my step had been right and wrote me a most pathetic letter. He apologized to me, if indeed a father may apologize to his son. He commended his sons to my care and to be brought up as I thought fit, and expressed his impatience to meet me. He cabled that he would like to come to South Africa, and I cabled in reply that he could. But that was not to be. Nor could his desire as regards his sons be fulfilled. He died before he could start for South Africa. His sons had been brought up in the old atmosphere and could not change their course of life. I could not draw them to me. It was not their fault. Who can say thus far no further to the tide of his own nature? Who can erase the impressions with which he is born? It is idle to be expect it is idle to expect one's children and wards necessarily to follow the same course of evolution as oneself. This instance to some extent serves to show what a terrible responsibility it is to be a parent. Part 6. A sacrifice to vegetarianism. As the ideals of sacrifice and simplicity were becoming more and more realized, and the religious consciousness was becoming more and more quickened in my daily life, the passion for vegetarianism was a mission went on increasing. I have only known one way of carrying on missionary work. That is by personal example and discussion with searchers for knowledge. There was in Johannesburg a vegetarian restaurant conducted by a German who believed in Kuhne's hydropathic treatment. I visited the restaurant myself and helped it by taking English friends there, but I saw that it could not last as it was always in financial difficulties. I assisted it as much as I thought it deserved and spent some money on it, but it had ultimately to be closed down. Most theosophists are vegetarians more or less, and an enterprising lady belonging to that society now came upon the scene with a vegetarian restaurant on a grand scale. She was fond of art, extravagant and ignorant of accounts. Her circle of friends was fairly large. She had started in a small way but later decided to extend the venture by taking large rooms and asked me for help. I knew nothing of her finances when she thus approached me, but I took it that her estimate must be fairly accurate, and I was in a position to accommodate her. My clients used to keep large sums as deposits with me. Having received the consent of one of these clients and lent about £1,000 from the amount to his credit. This client was most large-hearted and trusting. He had originally come to South Africa as an indentured laborer. He said, "Give away the money if you like. I know nothing in these matters. I only know you." His name was Badri. He afterwards took a prominent part in Satyagraha and suffered imprisonment as well. So advanced the loan assuming that this consent was enough. In 2 or 3 months' time, I came to know that the amount would not be recovered. I could ill afford to sustain such a loss. There were many other purposes to which I could have applied this amount. The loan was never repaid. But how could trusting Badri be followed to suffer? He had known me only. I made good the loss. A client friend to whom I spoke about the transaction sweetly chided me for my folly. Bhai, I had fortunately not yet become Mahatma, nor even Bapu. Friends used to call me by the loving name of Bhai, said he. This was not for you to do. We depend upon you in so many things. You are not going to get back this amount. I know you will never allow Badri to come to grief, for you will pay him out of your pocket. But if you go on helping your reform schemes by operating on your clients' money, the poor fellows will be ruined and you will be soon becoming a beggar. But you are our trustee and must know that if you become a beggar, all your public work will also come to stop. The friend I am thankful to say is still alive. I have not yet to come across a purer man than he, in South Africa or anywhere else. I have known him to apologize to people and to cleanse himself when, having happened to suspect them, he had found his suspicion to be unfounded. I saw that he had rightly warned me. For though I made good Badri's loss, I should not have been able to meet many similar loss and should have been driven to incur debt, a thing I have never done in my life and always abhorred. I realized that even a man's reforming zeal ought not to make him exceed his limits. I also saw that in thus lending trust money, I disobeyed the cardinal teachings of the Gita. That is the duty of a man of equipoise to act without desire for the fruit. The error became for me a beckoning beacon light of warning. The sacrifice offered on the altar of vegetarianism was neither intentional nor expected. It was a virtue of necessity. Part 7. Experiments in earth and water treatment. With the growing simplicity of my life, my dislike for medicine steadily increased. While practicing in Durban, I suffered for some time from debility and rheumatic inflammation. Dr. P.J. Mehta, who had come to see me, gave my treatment and I got well. After that, up to this time when I returned to India, I could not remember having suffered from any ailment of to speak of. But I used to be troubled with constipation and frequent headaches while at Johannesburg. I kept myself fit with occasional laxatives and well-regulated diet, but I could hardly call myself healthy and always wondered when I should get free from the incubus of these laxative medicines. About this time, I read of the formation of a No Breakfast Association in Manchester. The argument of the promoters was that Englishmen ate too often and too much, that their doctors' bills were heavy because they ate until midnight, and that they should at least give up breakfast if they wanted to improve their state of affairs. Though all these things could not be said of me, I felt that the argument did partly apply in my case. I used to have 3 square meals daily in addition to afternoon tea. I was never a spare eater and enjoyed as many delicacies as could be had with a vegetarian and spiceless diet. I scarcely ever got up before 6 or 7. I therefore argued that if I also dropped the morning breakfast, I might become free from headaches. So I tried the experiment. For a few days it was rather hard, but the headaches entirely disappeared. This led me to conclude that I was eating more than I needed. But the change was far from relieving me of constipation. I tried Kuhne's hip baths, which gave some relief but did not completely cure me. In the meantime, the German who had a vegetarian restaurant or some other friend, I forget who, placed in my hands is Just Nature, Return of Nature. In this book, I read about earth treatment. The author also advocated fresh fruit and nuts as the natural diet of man. I did not at once take to the exclusive fruit diet, but immediately began experiments in earth treatment and with wonderful results. The treatment consisted in applying to the abdomen a bandage of clean earth moistened with cold water and spread like a poultice of fine linen. This I applied at bedtime, removing it during the night or in the morning, whenever I happened to wake up. It proved a radical cure. Since then, I have tried the treatment on myself and my friends and never had reason to regret it. In India, I have not been able to try this treatment with equal confidence. For one thing, I have never had time to settle down in one place to conduct the experiments. But my faith in the earth and water treatment remains practically the same as before. Even today, I give myself the earth treatment to a certain extent and recommend it to my co-workers whenever the occasion arises. Though I had 2 serious illnesses in my life, I believe that man was little need to drug himself. 999 cases out of 1,000 can be brought round by means of a well-regulated diet, water and earth treatment and similar household remedies. He who runs to the doctor, Vaidya or Hakim for every little ailment and swallows all kinds of vegetables and mineral drugs not only curtails his life, but by becoming the slave of his body instead of remaining its master, loses self control, and ceases to be a man. Let no one discount these observations because they are being written in a sick bed. I know the reasons for my illness. I am fully conscious that I alone am responsible for them, and it is because of that consciousness that I have not lost patience. In fact, I have thanked God for them as lessons and successfully resisted the temptation of taking numerous drugs. I know my obstinacy often tries my doctors, but they kindly bear with me and do not give me up. However, I must not digress. Before proceeding further, I should give the reader a word of warning. Those who purchase just books on the strength of this chapter should not take everything in it by gospel truth. A writer almost always presents one aspect of a case, whereas every case can be seen for no less than 7 points of view, all of which are probably correct by themselves, but not correct at the same time and in the same circumstances. And then many books are written with a view of gaining customers and earning name and fame. Let those therefore who read such books as these do so with discernment and take advice of some experienced man before trying any of the experiments set forth, or let them read the books with patience and digest them thoroughly before acting upon them.